So basically, all the speakers, all the mains remain on at all times. They have a function in that they go to sleep, and so we don't have to power those off. They just go off themselves. To turn the board on, there's two power strips here. Put both those on. That turns on the electricity for everything in here, as well as the power strip over there.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, because we use that power strip.
So yeah, you want both of those on, and then turning it on is as simple as far as hitting this button, power button,
Okay.
one time, and that takes about 30 seconds to load up. And Dave, if you have any questions along the way, feel free.
Yeah, I'll ask as we go.
Yeah.
I just want you to go through what you would normally do for setup, and then we'll just have this available for anybody who, I'm not going to be the only guy who knows this, so we
Yeah.
will have other people.
What kind of things do you want set up?
Yeah, well, I'll ask you as we go.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of assume that you guys know how to mix. I won't go into like
Yeah,
mixing techniques.
no,
or
you don't
anything.
need to go to mix. I owned an operator recording studio for 28 years. I think I know a little bit about
Yeah.
that. So,
So it takes a few seconds for that thing to kick in.
Yes.
Okay, all
And
right,
you
so-
don't want to have your USB in when you start it up.
Okay. all right.
okay, good. That's good to know. No USB.
Yeah. That it'll look for software updates from the USB
Oh, I
if you have
see,
it in.
okay.
Okay.
So wait till it's loaded up before you stick the USB stick in there.
So as soon as the lights are on, it's loaded up.
Yep, it's all
Okay.
loaded up. It's ready
Okay.
to
Got it.
go. Very basically, this digital board functions like most digital boards. This one was laid out a little bit more like an analog board, but basically every channel that you would see on an analog board that would have the fader here, you'd have your gain, your aux sends, your EQ, and compression if it's a big board. All those channels going along here, everything that's up here now has just been moved to this one spot here.
Right.
So now you have your gain, your high pass filter, gates, compression, EQ, and your output section. So to get to this on each channel, you just hit the select button and it will move whichever channel you select. That whole section now applies to that channel.
Nice.
Going across kind of up here, the very basics here, you have in your inputs, you have your phantom power, your phase reverse, you have your gain trim and high pass filter. This button here at the bottom of each one of these will turn things on. So this will turn the high pass filter on, this will turn the gate on, the compression on, and the EQ on. You have your gate section here, pretty standard. Your compressor, standard compression.
Is there adjustable attack ratios and things like
There's
that?
attack, release, gain,
Okay.
ratio, threshold.
And how do they sound?
It's real nice, actually,
Okay.
real smooth compression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The EQ is pretty standard. You have an adjustable Q on the mids.
And how wide is that? How high do those mids go?
How high frequency-wise?
Yeah.
They go up to 20K.
20K, so it's a mid, but it's mid, low, high, right?
Low,
Okay.
high, anywhere
Okay.
you want.
Got it.
One thing that's helpful when doing EQ is on the screen here, on the bottom right corner is a button that says EQ. And if you click that, it'll graph out the EQ for you,
Okay.
which is way more helpful than just looking at the knobs. I highly recommend always using that on the screen.
So where does that get turned on?
Just on the main menu,
right.
bottom right.
Okay,
is
bottom
EQ.
right on the touch screen. Okay.
And if you're ever in a screen you want to go back, you have the menu button here, which will go back.
Okay.
The main menu. Usually this.
So it'll go back to what?
Whatever your previous screen was.
Okay.
And you click it a couple times, it'll go back to the main menu.
So
which is
will it
this.
go back to the previous channel that you selected as well if you go back far enough, or it just
No,
goes back?
that'll never change the channels.
Okay.
That'll just change the screen.
Within. Okay. Got it.
And usually this is to go back, and this button here, which says apply, is generally the enter button. If you're ever typing something,
Okay.
that's going to be your button to hit enter.
Okay.
Gate compression, EQ, once again, that button's awesome to help to like A/B stuff.
In and out.
The outputs here, it has a delay function, which is kind of a bizarre thing to have. It is useful in a couple instances. Basically, it's gonna delay, not delay like an effect, but it's actually gonna delay the sound,
Right.
which is useful whenever you have a loud acoustic instrument like the piano, so that the sound from the piano, the sound from the speaker will delay till the actual sound from the piano catches up to the speaker. So you can delay it 20 or 30 milliseconds.
Is that what you find works in this room?
I do
Okay.
find that works well.
Okay.
Um,
I was wondering, they said delay, and I go, when would you use that? And I go,
Yeah.
okay, that would make sense.
I thought the exact same thing.
I was thinking in recording it would make sense, because you'd have multiple mics, and you really want to phase correct them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I guess most of the times when I'm running that, I'm going about somewhere up here in the 50, 30 to 80, I guess, on the sample delay.
Milliseconds? Okay.
I
See
think
how
that's
that
less
changes?
than a millisecond. I'm not sure what that is, but it says SMP.
Okay.
Smaller than a millisecond, I think.
I guess that's
Below that is the pan, which is pretty clear, and below that it says LR in mono, and this will be a
So
little.
that's the channel pan?
This is a channel pan,
Okay.
yep. So all this stuff is on channel,
Right.
and then LR in mono is where the output source will go, and you have a left-right fader, master fader, and you have a mono master fader down here, and basically it's saying which output do you want it to go to.
Okay.
LR or mono. Now the way I have it configured is that LR goes to the outside speakers, left
Okay.
and right, and mono goes to the center cluster up top.
And what is the levels that you normally have those between? Are they normal, so you
Up
just
here?
bring them equal?
Yep, I have it set so they're pretty equal. You'll find that the LR, since I have more low frequencies going through the outsides because those have the bigger subs in them.
Right.
So you'll find that generally, if I find that it's a little bit too boomy, I can pull that down about 3 decibels and it'll take care of it.
Okay.
But generally, I run those even, and it seems to work well.
Okay.
One thing, if you ever clear out a channel, you start a channel brand new, it will only have the LR selected.
Okay.
So it'll only be coming out the outsides.
Okay.
Something just to be aware of.
Now, when I've heard those together before, they sound kind of phasey in relation to each other. Does it bother you or not? Does it feel more like a fill speaker?
Well, it's a little tricky. There is a little bit of phasing that happens in the space. Generally, since it's such a wide space, you can't really use either one of them as fills, and you can't really use either one of them as mains. Generally, I try to drive the center as more mains and use the sides as a little bit more fills, but you get much clearer low end from the outside.
Right.
So
I don't
kind of
like
a
the
comp-
lows on this at all, on the
Yeah.
center ones. They just,
So the outside ones, the lows are much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
yeah, when we use the middle only, I'm just going, man, I couldn't get the low. It just wasn't there. It rolls off at like
Yeah.
100 hertz or something.
Yeah, it
Okay.
drops off for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's your channels. They come up here. Then you have the below this you'll have a line of buttons going all the way across. They range from your first 14 are bus outputs, which would be similar to an AUX output on an analog board. After that you have matrix outs, which
You don't use, right?
you probably won't use a matrix out. It's like basically taking the entire mix and sending it to another place. Then after that you have effects, these last 4.
Okay.
I'll walk through a couple of these real quick. I know you guys use your own monitors, your own monitor sends. Basically, you know what I should do? Before I say that, there are 2 snakes up on the stage.
Uh-huh.
There's one in the center
Right.
under that pull-out wood thing, and there's one under the piano. The one under the center, I'll call it the first snake, and the one under the piano I'll call it the second snake. The first snake there's 10 channels that I'm pulling off of it that go into channels 1 through 10.
Okay, so stage snake, center snake.
That goes to 1 through 10. The second channel, which is the second snake, which is under the piano, goes through 11 through 18. So channels 1 through 8 is 11 through 18. Basically knock off the first number and you have 1 through 8. So first snake, second snake. After that, you'll see that there's an empty channel in 19. Then there's a couple things that I have on this board, which is one is coming from the pulpit mic up there, which goes into, I can't remember exactly what channel that is, but
13.
yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, pulpit. But then we have 4 wireless mics here, which are designated by red, blue, orange, green. And there's also on the back side, there's tape on them for red, blue, orange, green. You are welcome to, if you need to use those channels, you can unplug them, just put them back in there. And then we have a couple wireless microphones after that, which are the purple and the gray one back here as well.
We only have 2. We have a Britney Spears one, and then we just have a handheld.
There you are. So there's two empty channels right now. These 26 and 28, which you could also throw other things into.
So how do you get for the iPhone speaker music afterwards? Where would that go in? Do you have a mini jack for?
Yep. So then I'm running stereo into channels 29 and 30 on the back, which comes out, and there's a little cord right here, piece of tape on it. It usually just wraps around here.
I know that cord real well.
Okay.
That goes into these channels right here, 29 and 30.
Look at it, it's hooked together.
There it is. So they're both linked together, which means when you move one fader, the other fader will move.
Very cool.
Don't move both faders at the same time; it'll hurt the motor. Just choose one and go with it. The other will follow.
Okay.
Okay.
So those are linked together. If you make an EQ change on one, it'll make an EQ change on the other.
Okay.
If you make a gain change on one, it will not make a gain change on the other. That's the one thing that doesn't come through. So I have those hard pan left to right, but it's stereo. Pretty easy.
Good.
So how does stereo interface with your left, right, center cluster?
Yeah, so basically it's going to work with left and then the left channel of the center cluster.
Okay.
And the right channel of the
Okay.
center cluster.
So it'll be kind of phasing stereo.
Phasey stereo,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Imperfect stereo.
Okay.
Let's see. The other thing of what's on my mind, the other 3 little buttons here, you have your on-off button, which many analog boards use mute buttons. It's kind of the exact opposite. If you see something that there's no light, it's off.
Right.
You can turn it on, and it's green, and then it's on. So it's basically like a mute button, except the reverse, on-off. You have the select button, which will select the channel for using the channel strip portion. And then you have your solo button, kind of standard solo button as well.
Where does that solo go to? Where does it seem? I mean, like if you solo back here, will it solo to the mains, or is it just?
I don't believe it will. I never use the solo button. I know it'll solo through your headphones. It'll solo through the headphones. And then there's also a solo clear up here. So whatever solos you have, you can solo a bunch of things and then hit the clear solo.
Okay, and you have headphones hooked up, and where's the
There are.
volume for that, and how does that work?
Yeah, so the headphones, they're sitting down here. Here's the headphones.
Okay.
The headphone jack is down here.
Oh,
It's
okay.
really tricky to find. Took me forever to find it. And the monitor level on those is this top knob here.
Cool.
Yeah, that's all those. I'll come across here first. So coming from the aux sends up here, I have my monitors plugged into.
How many monitors you have on stage?
I currently have
available?
four stage monitors.
Okay.
I have 2 plugged into the front snake, which is A and B, labeled here and labeled on the monitor itself.
And where is the monitor volume for that? The send.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there when it opens up. So yeah, we have A and B going into 1 and 2. We have C and D going into 5 to 6. My C and D's monitors are in the other snake. And then there's a couple things that we use. We have a hearing aid help thing I actually have the pulpit microphone I have sending through one of these buses. I talked to Tom. He's probably going to use bus 3 for the output on the video. And what you'll see when you select one of these things, and you can plug if you want to use. I'm not sure where you want to plug your monitors in for stage monitors.
Well,
how many you have?
Just 2. I'm wondering why couldn't we just use these 2?
That works perfect.
Yeah, we'll just use it's up there, it's plugged in.
Yeah,
One less thing to unplug.
they are. You just have 2 monitor sends, right?
Yeah, that's all we have, yeah.
Wow.
It'd be nice to have more than 2, especially with the bigger bands. That's an issue. That's been an issue.
But 2 is fine right now, yeah.
Two for now is
Yeah,
fine, but
that's all we
we'll
have
probably
now.
Yeah.
That's
Well, if you
great.
want, there are 4 returns on that snake
Okay.
to the center.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them are plugged in right now, A and B, and there's 2 more that are just sitting right back here that you
Hold
can plug
on.
in.
I'll point that out again.
Just sitting right here.
That's returns 3 and 4 for which comes out of C and D on the center stage.
On the center stage, yeah.
Okay, got
On the
it.
center stage snake.
Oh,
And they might fall off,
there you
but
go, there's your extras if you want them.
yeah. And you can plug them into, wherever you want to, would really like to. If you find you want to use more, you could use 3 and 4. That's where I had them plugged in before. And just find a new place for Tom to plug into.
Yeah.
But basically, on all these AUX.
And how do your monitors sound?
My monitors?
Yeah.
Sound great.
A lot
Okay.
better than ours.
Yeah.
Ah.
They have. It's not so honky in the middle.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. Great. It's
They're nice.
pretty balanced. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you, I EQ them as well
Okay.
to make them sound nice.
Okay.
Now to go into any of these AUX sends, basically on an analog board you would just twist
Right.
like the knobs
Right.
across of which ones you would want
Right.
to go that. For this it's a little bit different. You would just select which AUX send you want, and now all of a sudden the whole board has changed. So these are all the volumes for every channel for that AUX send. So if you
Okay.
wanted these to go into that AUX send and those, you have it.
Right.
Furthermore, on every AUX send, whether you go into monitors or anywhere, you also have this whole thing is now also you can have a gate compressor EQ on that if you wanted as well on every AUX send.
And every aux. Okay.
Yeah.
So you would just hit the select, just like you would normally, just select the channel.
Yep. So you just
Here we go.
select the channel. Maybe you don't have. Yeah, there it is. You select. You're in bus 1, EQ, compression.
And that's global compression, or is that per channel?
I guess there's only compression and EQ, which is all you would really want actually.
Okay.
That's per channel.
Per channel.
Yep. Well, per bus channel.
Per bus channel. So it's a
Yeah.
global EQ, a global.
Global on the whole
Okay,
thing.
so give me an example of what kind of EQ. I know that that you say you're EQing their monitors. What
Mhm.
kind of EQ are you doing?
Well, I use something a little bit different. So also on every bus, you not only have this EQ, but you also have a fuller, not only the parametric EQ, you also have a graphic EQ. So if you click down here, there you'll see a graphic EQ low and a graphic EQ high.
Okay.
And when you click this, the board will change to red, which knows you're in graphic EQ mode.
Okay.
Now what that means is that
And where does that graphic EQ go?
it goes on the output of the bus channel.
Bus channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So you'll see written up here along these channels, there's 2 numbers. One says 31 hertz and 800 hertz.
Right.
So when you're on the low, graphic EQ low, this controls 31 hertz.
Okay.
When you go to high, it now controls 800 hertz.
Okay.
So if you wanted to have like less mids in your, probably go to your low. If you want to have less mids, you could pulse down some of those or have some, like a high pass filter
So
put
you
on
actually
there.
EQ it right there.
And then
Wow.
you may want a little bit more highs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There
And
you
what,
have
what
it.
kind of what kind of EQ are you using for your monitors, just to kind of get an idea?
Personally,
Yeah.
Personally, I do very minimal EQ on the monitors, but I generally pull down, where am I at? I generally pull down somewhere between the 250 and 630.
Okay. That would make sense based on these speakers. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Tom.
See you, Tom.
Yeah, lots of how to turn it on, turn it off. I'm good. Thanks, Dave.
Sure. Okay. And what do you do any high middle for system EQ for your sentence?
Yes, I'll get there at the,
Okay.
I'll get there at the end.
No, I'm not talking about the room EQ. I'm
Okay.
talking about the monitor sentence.
That's where I was just at right there.
Okay. So for your highs, do you do any EQ? You're saying you're pulling some mids,
Pulling
which
some
would make
mids, and I
sense.
think I give a little bit probably like a 3 decibel boost on like 9K up,
Okay.
something like that.
So the monitors are rolling back a little bit naturally. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's every channel basically. So you're gonna have your monitors for all these bus channels, whether you're going out to monitors or you're going out to a video, to the video camera. Those will all be done with these bus settings, and you have 14 of them. The one trick about this is that bus 13 and 14, the outputs for those, so you can kind of have buses that actually go to outputs, or you can have internal buses, like if you want to send something to a bus and just utilize the graphic EQ of that bus and then send it back to the output, you can do that. So there are 14 buses with a bus output in the back. However, I have routed output 13 and 14 are actually being used as outputs for the center cluster.
Okay.
So there are no physical outputs for 13 and 14.
Okay.
So if you ever want to do internal bus routing,
Right.
13 and 14 are great channels to use
Okay.
for that. Coming along here, so we have the 14 buses, we have the 4 matrix. I guess you won't use that. If you do, there's the user guide. After that, there are 4 effects to put in here.
Okay. Do you have any external effects or not?
And no external effects,
Okay.
all internal effects. Currently what I have set for me, which I just transferred over to you guys,
Okay.
is I have an instrument reverb in effects 1, a delay in effects 2. Effects 3 and 4 are both vocal reverbs. I prefer effects 4. Well, effects 4 is a longer vocal reverb, effects 3 is a shorter vocal reverb.
Okay.
On the delay, you'll see that there's above all these are tap tempos.
Okay.
So on the delay,
So you could tap for the reverbs or the delay. Okay.
I think only delay. I don't think you'd ever tap for a reverb. But
Well, some reverbs, I know this has lexicon in it, but
Yeah.
some reverbs have a pre-delay, and that sets or will have a bouncing effect within the reverb
Okay.
element. And having the tap on that would,
there you are.
let's say you have a piano and you want to keep it in tempo.
Yeah. My guess is if that happened, it'd probably start flashing there, the
Okay.
tempo.
Okay.
But yeah, so buses are all yellow, or cyan, I think they call it, or yellow something. Effects are all blue.
Okay.
It's really helpful to pay attention to that and notice that when there's no color, that means you're in FOH, front of house mixing.
Yeah.
There's no color under. Yeah, so when there's no fader glow underneath the majority of the channels,
Okay.
that means that you're in front of house mix.
Okay.
If you have in anything else, any other color, that means that you're somewhere else, mixing something else.
Okay.
To go into to apply any effects, you just select effect and choose what channel you want to go on, and you have the effect for that channel on.
So give me an example of what you would do for a main vocal versus backing vocals and reverb. Would you have a smaller, like on a main vocal that's up front and it's louder, you'd have a little bit longer reverb, and then the backing vocals would be, give me an example of how you're using it.
Yeah, I think that really kind of depends on taste of.
Right, so let's say you had a
Musicians and
ballad,
whatnot.
it's slow, there's space, the instruments are sparse.
Yeah. So generally, I would put things on like a vocal. I usually put a delay and a reverb.
Right.
So I'd go into my vocals and I'd add some delay onto the vocalists, and I'd add some reverb onto them as well.
And what are you using for delay lengths, roughly?
See how fast that's blinking?
Okay,
I'm usually doing a pretty short delay.
okay.
Pretty short because
So you're under 100 milliseconds just as a kind of thickener?
exactly.
Okay.
It just kind of gives a little bit more body to it.
Right.
The reason being is that unless someone's really paying attention to the board and paying attention to the effects, if you're doing longer delay times,
Yeah.
inevitably the engineer's just going to forget to
Yeah.
do it unless you're really on top of it. to kind of click those delays over. So I keep it on a short delay, so you don't really have to worry about
Right.
flipping that over.
Makes sense.
On every channel on the far right is the master of the effect. Generally, I set that, I mean, you can do whatever you want. I set that so that 0 on any channel is what kind of ideally I want. So usually I'll have to bring the master of the effect down. But the nice thing about all this stuff is that if, kind of as we continue on our little journey here, these little buttons, you notice this is a 32 channel board, but there's only 30 faders on it, which is a little strange. So you have 2 layers of faders. The first layer being these first 30, and it says in A, input A, and the second layer, input B.
Okay.
Now so there's channel 31 and 32. Now also here are your 4 effects.
Okay.
The masters for those 4 effects.
Okay.
So if you come to a song that you want to have that's going to be more of a ballad and you want to have a little more reverb,
Okay.
you can just use your master and it increases on every channel that has that assigned to it.
Okay.
Or you want a little bit less reverb, you do that as well. So these are your fader controls, input A, input B. You can also go to your bus. So these are your masters for the buses. So you have
Master sends.
masters for the sends for your buses.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And why green and yellow?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why those 4 are green? I actually do not know why those are green.
The colors are, but it is bus. Those are the 12 buses, right?
Those should be the 12 buses. Let's see here. There should be 14. I know 13, 14 not being used, but yeah, I actually don't know why those are green. I know for sure the yellow ones are buses. I don't know why those are green. Next you'll have the matrix, which you probably aren't going to use, and finally you'll have the graphic EQ. Graphic EQs, which right now there's nothing selected for that to be a graphic EQ. So if we go into the masters here, we could select the master, master LR, and go into graphic EQ, and you'll see this is the tuning that I have on the room right now with these speakers. You'll see low and high, and the same thing for the center cluster as well. They're slightly different, primarily to bring out some of the more lower frequencies into the outsides and to draw less of them off the center.
So I see you're rolling down a little bit on the lows there, yeah, in the centers.
Yeah. This is what I found works well. You guys can change that if you want to.
Okay.
It's kind of the way I've said it. I'm not an expert at tuning rooms.
Right.
You're welcome to change
So
that.
Rich has not come here yet to do the final tune, or?
He has not.
Okay.
So this is, since we are not using
The DBX driver app?
the DBX, yeah. This is kind of the
Workaround.
short-term solution. This board does not have any feedback suppression or anything like that. So you're not having feedback suppression, not having compression on the outputs. You could put a compression on the output. It's tricky though.
So you don't have, so you're running individual compressors
On every channel.
on every channel? Really?
Well, whatever I want.
Yeah, but I mean, does it sound all,
Depends how hard you're compressing it,
yeah.
for sure. Now you can set up groups on this. I don't usually set up groups. I know you can. I can't remember how you do it, but that's what they use you guys for.
Yep.
If you want to set up groups, you can set up groups and put a compression on each one of those groups if you like to do it that way.
Here's a tip that you may or may not be familiar with. This is really cool. So what you do is you set up a compressor in a group with a hard compression. You leave your original vocal channels without compression, and you just, as the song gets louder, you bring up your louder compression, so it still maintains all the cool little overtones and the nice attack and everything. And the compressor buses the group of vocals that's doing a heavy compression. So you have the unadulterated, and this is a complex mix. There's a lot of stuff going on. We need to really keep those vocals tight, or the dynamic instrument's really, really tight. It's really cool.
Yeah. And there's a way to do that. I'm not
Okay.
sure how to set that up, but
Okay.
that's where you get to explore.
It's a cool tip.
Oh, yeah.
I've done it in mixing. It sounds so good. It's like, wow, you have such control over the vocals, yet they still breathe. And I
Yeah,
go, well,
yeah.
you know.
The last couple of things, the last kind of few things as far as buttons are concerned on here. You have 3 buttons here: gain, filter, and pan.
Gain of what?
Gain. So these 3 buttons are going to control all these knobs along here. So we have gain selected. That's the gain for all of them. We have pan selected. And that's going to be the pan left and right.
So that's
for
kind of
everyone.
like a shortcut if you're in the middle of something else and you're working on EQ and you go, man, I got to pan it or I got to tweak the trim it. Is
for
that-
sure.
Okay.
Or it's a much easier way, because I mean, when you're setting up a mix, you're going to want to be checking the high pass filter on every single thing up there, rather than going in and selecting the channel and going to the high pass and selecting and going to the high pass. You can just hit filter and you have the high pass filter right there. You can dial it all in,
Right.
and you can do the same thing with your gain. So you
Right.
set up your high pass and your gain for everything
Right.
all at once.
Right. So the initial setup, that's what you do.
Yep, kind of your go-to.
Sorry. Okay.
Next down here you have clear and solo clear. The basic feature of this clear, you can clear anything by holding down the clear button
Okay.
and then pressing whatever you want to clear. So you could hit, if you are on a channel, let's say, and you have an EQ and a compression that's all like weird and stuff, you can hit clear, EQ, and it all goes back to the default clear compressor, and it goes back to the default.
Okay.
Same thing if you have this all kind of messed up in there, and that's all in one channel, and the channel has something else going on, you can hit clear that channel, and it clears everything on the channel back to the default,
Okay.
back to 0. The one thing it doesn't clear is that, it's not true. That's not true. I'm confused now. Yeah, so anyway, it clears everything there. Coming down, there are 4 mute groups in here.
Okay.
What it's currently set up as, I mean, you can set it to whatever you want. You can literally set these up to whatever you want. It's going to change based on what you have. One of the really helpful things that I use is I have one that's mute everything but the iPod. That's mute group 4. But to set them up, you just hit setup and you choose whichever channels you want to have muted. No, setup, that's not right. Setup 1, there you are. And you choose whichever channels you want to have muted in that mute group. And then whenever you hit mute group 1, it mutes all those channels.
Okay.
Pretty basic.
So it's 2 steps: mute group to set it, and then let it go, and then push it again, and it'll just.
Yeah, so
recall
you
it.
just hit setup, which mute group you want to set up,
Okay.
choose which ones you want,
Right. Got it.
and the setup.
Okay.
And then you have your mute group set up.
Got it.
That's that. That's all the basic features on the board. The other thing that I won't cover is the cue list, because I can be using cues. If you want to change the lexicon effects, there's a lexicon button that'll bring you into a new page.
Okay. And how's the reverb? Did they do a nice lexicon in this board, or? Is it just-
there's a bunch of different verbs in there.
Okay.
There's some that are definitely better than others. They have some really nice reverbs in there.
Okay. And what are your favorites of the reverbs that are in there?
I haven't explored it a whole ton. My favorite reverb that I've come so far is their standard vocal plate. It's the long vocal plate.
Right. And how long is it, just roughly?
I'm not sure. I think I shortened it a little bit. I think they had it about 3.5. I think brought it down to 2.5.
Okay. Okay. I like the sound of lexicon, so that'll be nice after the board working on it. Everything sounds bad.
Yeah, they do have some good reverbs. So a couple things on the screen here, if you want to bring this camera
Okay.
closer, that might be
Let me
helpful
just take.
for anyone watching. The couple things to show on here. One, I'll highlight all this is obviously in the user manual. First thing is the EQ button is, I think, the most helpful thing on this whole thing, because it'll show you your EQ chart. It'll graph your E2 for you, so you can see it. And once again, if you don't like something, just clear it, and it'll disappear.
Got it.
It should disappear. There we are. To go back, hit menu. The main thing that I want to show is how to save something. And the way you save it is you go to show, and then save as, and you save whatever you want it to be called. So I have this saved as today's date, January 30th, 2013, Believer's Edge. And then you hit apply, which is basically enter. And it will say where do you want to save it. And this is the internal hard drive, MMC. Now it's a touch screen, so you can just select it. And in here you'll see that there's a folder called Believer's Edge, and then there's a whole bunch of versions in here of other stuff. All these versions are what we use on Sunday mornings. So if you guys just want to go into Believer's Edge, you can save whatever you want into Believer's Edge. There it is right there. You hit OK. This says that there's already a version there. You want to override it? Yes. And then it will export it into there. Now if you have a...
So my concern is getting you back to where you were on that day's mix.
Yeah. So what I would do is every time that you start, you get here to set up, I would come in and just hit save as. So whatever we have already set up from that previous Sunday, just go save as, save it as that date for that day, minus the Believer's Edge thing.
Right.
Apply. And then go into, not into the Believer's Edge folder, but go into, there we are, into there, and save it right there. Hit OK, and it'll save it right into. Save it right into there. Then you can go and you load your own thing, save yours onto your flash drive or onto here, and when you get to the very end, you just hit load. You actually don't have to hit load, we can hit load, but hit load and go to that date and hit OK. In fact,
well, if you set it up every week and you save your last version, do we need to save your version as we use it?
I would just do it as a backup, like
in case
save it in there, particularly if you don't see a date from that week. Just always be in a routine. If you guys save it, then we always know it's there. And then you also have the security of knowing that it's been saved, and you're not losing anything.
Now, do you change it much week to week after? I mean, are you changing it a whole bunch now that you know that you can, or
not a whole bunch,
or because it's all automated, you just save it less? Because you go, well, I've done 5 setups, I don't really need more than.
Yeah, I mean, we save it every. Well, we have different setups every week. Sometimes we have 3 people, sometimes we have 8 people, and those people will rotate through. So it definitely does change from week to week. So I think that'd be the probably most helpful, is just to just save it every week. We can always see it. And that way, if anything does go wrong, we have a
backup.
There's something there.
So we really don't need a USB because there's an internal drive.
There's an internal drive.
And there's enough memory on it we're not going to fill it up, or.
I don't imagine that we will. If you have one, whenever you hit save as and you go in there, instead of hitting MMC, you'll see the USB drive listed right there. Click on it, you can save on it. It's very, very simple. And if you want to have it as a backup, like for example, this is what I'd probably recommend, just in case something goes wrong with the board and everything gets deleted off there, if you have like just your basic setup, your go-to setup on some thumb drive, that'd be like probably a smart little backup to have. And so let's see, and lastly, a lot of these things you aren't going to really use. The one thing that might be helpful if you want is to go into fader setup. It kind of depends how customized you want to have your things on the board. Some people like to have all their vocalists in channels 1 through 3. But this is, if you want that, you can assign which channel from the back goes to which fader on the front. So you can go through there and say, assign inputs to, so assign like channel 1, and I want to go into channel 3 or whatever. Wherever it goes to. But yeah, that's where you're going to be able to No.
Okay.
That's where you'll be able to switch and move things around.
Right.
There's the basics.
Okay.
They're the basics. Lastly, how to close it down is to take the master volumes faders and turn off.
Okay.
Then you hold this button for 2 seconds. It'll turn yellow, and you tap it,
Okay.
and it's shut off.
And it mutes. It doesn't pop the speakers. Okay.
If these come down, generally it won't pop the speakers when it starts back up.
Okay.
So that's why I try to remember to turn those off.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will pop the speakers when it comes back up.
Okay.
Now there's protection on there.
Right.
It shouldn't do anything if it does, but
Okay.
and then flip the 2 powers off at the bottom,
Okay.
and that's the board.
Alrighty. Okay, the challenges that you find as you're adjusting from another board are what?
2 main things: remembering which channel to select. It is selected. So, for example, if we have a guitar selected over here, but you're trying to EQ a vocal that's over here, oftentimes it's easy to just jump to the EQ section and start EQing something without remembering what channel you're on, and you end up inadvertently EQing the wrong thing. That is the biggest first challenge. And so first thing to remember which channel is selected.
Okay.
It'll save a lot of troubles. The second is when mixing is to remember that no fader glow means front of house. Similar thing, you could be like in some bus and be trying to mix, and nothing's happened, nothing seems like it's changing. You realize, oh, I just ruined someone's monitor mix
Right.
because of that. So just remember, no fader glow means front of house.
Okay.
Those are the 2 big things.
No lights, you're good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then select, you're good.
Yep.
Now, I hear that there's a way to set up an iPad to do your own mix from up there.
Mhm.
Is the Wi-Fi in here good, or
The Wi-Fi is not reliable enough to do it. I wouldn't do it.
really?
Yeah.
You're a church with people who are following online and you don't have Wi-Fi set up? I'm sorry.
I mean, we have Wi-Fi. The internet connection has been so lousy here the past while. Apparently, they got it a little bit better, but I still don't trust it enough
Right.
to do it. Perhaps I should. Perhaps I should. But
Because wouldn't it be so cool to have each of your band members and their iPads adjusting their own mixes, their own monitor mixes?
it would. I don't trust them to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because not only can you do that, but you can also do the mix for every single function on this board. You can do on the iPad.
Right.
So if you click one thing wrong, all of a sudden, instead of doing your monitor mix, you're all of a sudden doing front of house.
Right.
So I wouldn't give everyone an iPad. It's just
Right.
too risky.
Right.
But I would love to have one. The biggest problem is that this isn't connected. It doesn't have an internal router, so it has to be plugged into the router
Okay.
modem, which is all the way over there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just not a cable going to it.
So it's just, I mean, when we build the console rack, can we just run a wire to that, or?
Possibly.
I would love to give Kevin his own mix,
Mhm.
and because he mixes it way too loud, and I would never normally mix it that high.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my next question is, this is an obvious one. Every week that we come in, you have everything plugged in
Yep.
on the channels that we might be using, or do you have availabilities where we could just plug in our own mics and cables?
Sorry, say that again.
You have, every week we come, everything's set up for your rehearsal or an evening service or whatever from the week before. So we're now going to come in and interrupt that somehow. Do you have open mics on your Snake so we don't interrupt that, or?
So what I would do, and I need to talk a little bit to Tom about this, is I would say just use, these channels are already plugged into Snake.
Right.
These first 10 channels.
Right.
If you wanted to, you could unplug those 10 channels and find the other 8 channels or whatnot, or 10 channels, and plug those in. You're welcome to do that if you want. My guess is it's going to be easier just to use those and unplug the stuff from the Snake up there.
So our protocol would be unplug your mics, label them so that they all get back to the same spot. So instead of running a Snake and doing all that, we're now carefully unplugging. And
So what I'm probably going to do is just write up a generic setup to leave you guys, so
Right.
that every week you guys set it up the same
Right.
way.
Right.
Not so that you aren't trying to mimic exactly what I had set up for the week before,
Right.
because that's going to change from week to week. But I'll
Right.
give you just a generic setup. So every week you set it up with these 3 microphones up front and my guitar cable coming to here, so you
Right.
guys know.
Right.
It can just become a routine and a habit.
Yeah.
So there's only, generally, I think that way there'll only be 4 channels coming out of the snake up front.
Okay.
So it won't be a hard setup.
For coming out of, what do you mean?
I only have 4 channels. I only use generally 4 channels out of that front snake.
Okay.
On account of the generic setup.
And that's the first 10 channels here?
Yeah, so I'll be using these 4 right here,
Okay.
generally.
Okay.
Or maybe up to 6, 4 to 6.
Okay.
Generally, I won't use more.
And how many
from the
inputs will
snake.
we have available from that front center?
10. You have
So
10.
we'll have 10 after that, so after 6, it's 16?
You have a total of 10 out of the front snake.
Okay.
But yeah, you can, if you can unplug those, you'll have 10 right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Which will be fine for now, but our band is starting to grow a little bit, so.
Yeah, so then after that, you can do one of 2 things. I mean, you can either keep shoving stuff down there, or there's a lot of extra cable on that back snake as well. So the back snake, you could actually pull that snake all the way across, and you probably have an extra 15 feet on that snake. You can pull that one across, and you have additional 8 channels there.
Okay.
So,
And how many of those channels are available at this point that aren't plugged in?
usually I have 5 to 8 channels plugged into that thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
And it's how many channels, Snake?
8.
8, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm surprised you didn't run some extras. I mean, are you feeling like you're going to fill it up at any point, or?
Oh, I filled up all the time.
Yeah.
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 It was bought before I came here. So
Okay.
That's why I have it.
So is there a way to pull a bigger snake? Can we work on that on our end?
Yeah, if you want to pull another snake up there, go for it.
Yeah.
Just I think it's 120, 150 feet from
Okay.
there up to here.
And how's the roll-off sound with 150 feet of cable in front of the mic pre's? I mean, do you feel like you're losing?
I haven't felt like I'll lose a whole ton.
Okay.
There certainly is. I mean, it seems like there's a noticeable gain reduction.
Right.
You definitely have to make up, and some mics in particular. You really have to push a lot on these pre's to get them going.
Okay. Does it get noisy as you're pushing it, or not?
It can. I
Okay.
mean, it just depends obviously, it just depends how much you have to push it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I've one SM58 that, man, I have to push it so hard. So I mean, I'm just cranking on it
Right.
to get it going. But I have
So how much makeup
58s.
gain do you do for that? I mean,
Makeup gain, well, it kind of depends on after the compression, but as far as like adding trim and whatnot, oh man, I mean, I'm pushing it almost up to, I'm probably pushing up to 50 on that thing, on that one microphone.
okay.
But
Is
others not.
are there other 58s that there's not the problem? So is it just that cable or that mic?
Probably that microphone.
Okay.
But most of them I have to push a good amount of gain into. However, like I have an 87 beta up there that has phantom, which helps a ton. And that thing soars. That thing's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Cool. I think I have it. So any other comments? As far as
There you go.
setting up monitor mixes, how loud it is on stage.
well, I think that's going to be all you guys, however you guys want it mixed, engineered. One last thing, you have a light.
Okay.
Separate
Is there a microphone hooked up for talkback?
There is.
And
Generally, it
where's that
runs-
controlled?
Generally runs into 28.
The
I may have
28.
cleared that out. I don't have it plugged in right now. Generally, I run it into 28. Basically, you're going to run it in there and just send it to whatever monitors you want. So you
Okay.
just go to monitor A and put it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is a microphone sitting here just on that cable right now.
Okay. Got it. I think that's it. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate your time.